My name is Wes Pagano. I am a singer. I play music for a band called Bullet Made Statues. We write music for, film, commercials, and have fun touring the road. So that's what I do. It's fun. I like to communicate through music, like to record music, and I believe it captures a lot of things inside, and it definitely tells lots of stories. When I was a boy, I was diagnosed with what they call HUS. It's also known as hemolytic uremic syndrome. And that's when you have your red and white blood cells, the weaker and the stronger. The weaker were eating the stronger blood cells, which was causing internal bleeding inside my body. It was around 88, 89, and they didn't really know how I got it. They didn't know how to treat it. So for about 8 months, I was out of school just losing weight and getting sick and throwing up. And my mom had a very close friend named Carolyn Geddes, who is to me, an angel in this planet. And she happened to be dating a doctor, and she kind of gave him my symptoms, and he said to take me to Cedars-Sinai, which is a hospital out here. And I did. I got rushed, and that's when they realized this kid's not going to make it. So they gave me 3 blood transfusions. I was under cardiac arrest, and they just were pulling people off the street, fire departments, police departments, my church. A lot of people were really willing to help me out, donate blood to keep me going. That's something I'll never forget is seeing the doctors explain to my parents truly what's going on, and them seeing that there's no help. It took me out of school for quite a long time. And when they put me back into the school system, I don't even want to say it was 2 or 3 months. One of my parents' close friends from church, his name was Beurin, he had passed away. He had a heart attack. This was a guy who would always give me like a high five and stuff after the sermon and stuff. And I remember my parents taking me to his funeral, and it was an open casket. And I walked up to the casket, and I remember seeing his dead body and just kind of taking it in that could have been me, just a few months ago. And that's when trauma started hitting me. And then everyone I looked at and just my place in life was very fearful. I was really scared for how much time I had on this planet, how much time my loved ones had on this planet, how much time I had with each other. And up till I was 14, I really couldn't spend the night at people's homes. I couldn't function the way other kids would because I just was scared. It was uncomfortable, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse every day, because the help that I feel my parents were trying to help me with, because they didn't know how to help me. They had psychiatrists, pastors, teachers, older, mentors, if it was like my aunt or, anybody, try to get inside my head. And really all it was me kind of getting a realization how life is short and sweet, and how it's important to live your life to the fullest, and how it's important to realize God gives us all a plan. And during that childhood, during that segment of seeing Russ pass away, and it brought in the fear and the trauma. It was the new thing for doctors to prescribe Ritalin or other types of drugs for not just for focusing, but depression. The uppers didn't know how strong of a drug they were giving a child, and I don't think my parents knew. I don't think it was so brand new. I was the test. I was the, hey, okay, maybe give them less, maybe give them more, and you can't do that to a kid. You just cannot do that. I don't believe in that. I still don't. I think it's wrong. I think there's ways to get to somebody that has a lot of capabilities of doing things other people can't, or seeing things other people can't. Taking the medication, it was around the 7th grade. He basically flat out looked me in the face and said, "I don't like when you're on your medication. You're not you when you're on your medication." And I kind of looked at him weird, because all the uppers, everybody's telling me that I need to take this medication so I can function like everyone else. It takes that one person just to definitely recognize what you are, besides yourself. And that was Taylor. That was definitely my best friend. He noticed how I was when we play music after school. He noticed that my attention and everything that I had was involved, and I was right there up at the forefront. I was born in '81, so my age growing up, there wasn't any understanding behind the anxiety and why people are getting it, and why it's really affecting people's lives until now. And now, since we have it, people that do have anxiety, they are literally taking the drug to take it for the anxiety, but they don't even know what the anxiety is for. Therefore, they're relying on the pill to solve the problem when they could have solved the problem themselves. And that's where the issue lies, is actually taking that breath of fresh air and saying, "I'm feeling this. This is why I'm feeling this," and doing something about it. That's the hardest and easiest part of life that we don't grasp anymore, that we feel that we can lean on a doctor to give us some type of drug to take care of that. That's not okay. That's not okay to yourself. You're not listening to yourself. That's a self-respect. That's where it comes from, and it's our job to listen to ourselves. Well, synesthesia is more of a color scheme into pattern, if I believe. You can't quote me on this because I'm not Webster here. But the chromesthesia is where it actually moves, and it's like you asked, is it always the same color? And it's not. So I'm pretty sure that's more of where chromesthesia works into my favor, is saying I have synesthesia, because exactly that question. It's never the same. It's never the same. And it's always with you. It's like when you eat something. You know the difference when grandma made it to somebody who didn't, who's not your grandma. That's probably the best way to explain it. You know it feels good when they can all feel really, really well. If I'm saying, if a regular musician were to say, "Hey, play the A chord into the G chord," I would say, "Play green and go into blue." And if you were my musician, would you know? So that it translates into, in my case, it's not a G, it's not an A, it's a feeling, it's a dance, it's a vocabulary. I really started noticing the difference of how I interact with other musicians when it came down to that point, when it came down to the writing. There was a producer that we were working with that said, "Hey, when you're writing, how are you writing?" And I straight up said I use colors, and he just kind of looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I tried to explain to him. I said, when I go to approach something, I can't just go off and approach it. I have to identify it, and the only way I can identify it is when it shows and it glows. Yeah. And he still just didn't understand it. And I kind of went to my best friend, and I felt like he understood, but then he just didn't. And I kind of realized it was different from the other musicians that I'm playing with. And it grew even more, because I then felt uncomfortable playing the music in the band that I was in, so I stopped playing in that band, and I ended up forming this group that I just told you, Bullet Made Statues, where I can be able to now release all these colors, write in these colors, and no one's going to ask me anything. I don't have to explain why I see these colors and why these colors work and why it made the song. It's amazing to have the support, but still not a lot of people understand. And it was great that my girlfriend and I have found a way to explain it to people of there's a thing called synesthesia and there's a thing called chromesthesia. And I kind of lean on the chromesthesia. I remember in one of the therapy classes, the room had a bunch of stuff on the table, and I think I don't know what the psychiatrist's notes were, what the point of this was to find what attracted me, what got my wheels turning, what inspired me, I guess. In this room was state-of-the-art video games, puzzles, books, and in the corner was a piano. And I never played music. And I went to the piano. That's what I want for the kids, is to be able to have that one room to pick anything. And if it wasn't the piano, it could have been anything else. And God knows I could have jumped off of it and gone to something else. But they allowed me to find it. That's my point, and that's how I'm trying to answer you. Have that middle ground. Find that way of communication. That's what I want schools to do for the kids, is to have something where they can communicate into the world so the world can communicate back to them, because they just need to hear. And that's the thing that schools didn't do for me. Schools can now do for the children. They have that place where they can see this kid's genius. This kid, and my family wasn't like that. I'm going back to my family, nor was my school like that, nor was my generation like that. We're not in that kind of generation anymore. We're definitely, and I sure hope so, we're in that place where we can now give that kid that opportunity to find exactly makes him him. My generation was the buildup of anxiety, give the kids the drugs. I mean, they were more messing with me than they were helping me. And now, after taking those, you have to come off the drugs like any other person using medications. These are all things that play into your future. You know, what would you say to a kid that you're pumping them full of narcotics and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, it's kind of, you're not talking to the kid. You're talking to the doped up kid. So when I'm not doped up, this is what I like to do. This is where I find the most comfortable. This is where you're going to get the best out of me. Not saying just the music, because there's tons of other art creativity things that I like to do that, you know, I can spend hours on. So that's what I hope schools should do. I mean, it's the kids are our future. At the end of the day, respect them. They have more to say than we do. Find what the world is saying to you so you can talk back. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And I feel like there was once a time where we all knew that. We all knew that as a togetherness. We all did. Something happened. My closing message is to follow your heart and to listen to the world, because the world is now giving back. We're in that time. And it's going to be a beautiful one. It's going to be a beautiful time.